And we're kicking off with WWE. And in just a few months' time, the company will host its Royal Rumble Premium Live event, the official starting point on the road to WrestleMania. The show will, of course, see somebody win the Men's Rumble match, and while many predict it'll be Cody Rhodes for the second time, there is momentum behind another popular superstar. As per a report shared by Zero News, there's an internal push for LA Knight to win the Royal Rumble match next year, as execs at WWE's soon-to-be owner Endeavor are supposedly big fans of Knight. Endeavor management want Knight in a big match for next year's WrestleMania, with one idea being that he could move to Raw and challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship on Night 1. One source suggested that Knight's move to Raw would be a Paul Heyman suggestion, as the special counsel of Roman Reigns would be scared of the notion of Knight dethroning the tribal chief. The pitched idea would see Heyman arrange a trade, sending Knight to Raw with Jey Uso being brought to SmackDown, helping set up the rumored Jimmy vs. Jey match at WrestleMania 40. Knight, who shared a segment with Heyman on last week's SmackDown, would leave SmackDown, but under the warning to Paul that they'll meet again, teasing something down the line with Reigns. As to whether Knight would win the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 40, that's unclear, but it would certainly give Endeavor the high-profile Knight match they're reportedly wanting. But what do you think? Would you like to see LA Knight win the Royal Rumble and challenge for the World Heavyweight title? Let us know in the comments down below. Earlier this month, it was reported that WWE and LA Knight were negotiating a new long-term deal for the popular superstar, one that some in WWE believe will be a 5-year deal. Keeping Knight around for that long certainly implies that WWE sees big things in his future, but these negotiations have not been going smoothly for either side. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that it is indeed true that Knight and WWE have been engaged in extension talks, and that a 5-year deal has already been offered. However, the two sides are said to be far apart on money, and that no deal has been agreed to, and it doesn't appear that a new deal would be coming anytime soon. One WWE higher-up said that there was no truth to the idea that Knight's push was tied to a new contract, citing that many wrestlers on the roster have deals coming up in the next year and are getting pushes. They also pointed out that Knight's current WWE deal runs well into 2025, so WWE has over a year and a half left to negotiate a new contract, so there's still plenty of time to go. WWE is getting closer to really pulling the trigger on LA Knight's push, who's been picking up significant wins in recent weeks, and Knight himself has big plans as a WWE superstar. At 40 years old, WWE once considered Knight too old to be a main roster superstar, but that isn't the case anymore, and we'll have to see what deal the two sides can figure out. While traveling home from the superstar spectacle, Matt Riddle was involved in an incident at JFK Airport in which he alleged that a security guard sexually assaulted him. Some reports have said that Riddle was heavily intoxicated at the scene, and after the incident at JFK Airport, PW Insider have confirmed that Riddle was not brought in for last night's Raw taping. As one of the Red Brand's top stars, it's entirely likely that Riddle did have a match or segment on the show, which could have been cancelled due to WWE's ongoing investigation into the matter. There's also a theory that a backstage altercation in India led to what happened at JFK Airport, and you can check out our previous video at the end screen or click on the link in the description field to learn more. WWE sources have confirmed that in addition to not appearing on Raw, Riddle is no longer scheduled to work this weekend's live events in Idaho or Washington, which he'd been booked to work on. It was interesting that Matt Riddle wasn't at this week's Raw, as he is in a storyline with Drew McIntyre right now, and the team did get destroyed by the Viking Raiders last week. Only time will tell what's next for the original bro, who continues to make headlines for WWE for all the wrong reasons, and for the time being, don't expect him in the ring, on TV, or at live events. This incident at JFK Airport is just the latest in a string of controversies for Matt Riddle, which includes him cheating on his now ex-girlfriend Daniela Petro with his current girlfriend Misha Montana. Petro has taken issue with Riddle's behavior multiple times, and in a series of tweets, hit out at her ex-boyfriend over this latest controversy. Petro stated that Riddle is not a victim in any situation, and called out the Raw superstar for allegedly being intoxicated after his stint in rehab. Riddle's ex talked about how he accused that JFK airport officer of sexual assault and transitioned that into bringing up allegations of sexual abuse that she allegedly suffered through, allegedly at the hands of Riddle. Petro went on to ask, WWE, how long are you going to shield your baby white privileged problem child? As she clearly keeps up to date with the various controversies that Riddle has experienced. At this time, there's no confirmation on what WWE will do with Riddle, only that he won't be at this weekend's live events, and we'll keep following his situation for further updates. Raw news now as this week's show kicked off with Jey Uso, who was reminded this week that not everybody is as welcoming to him on the red brand as Sami Zayn. On the show, Kevin Owens said he didn't trust the former Bloodline member before they were essentially made to team together, facing off with Finn Balor and Damian Priest. A minor miscommunication saw Uso superkick Owens by accident in what'll no doubt be a setback in their relationship, and with the Judgment Day still interested in recruiting Jey, things could get very interesting for main event Jey. It was during last week's Raw and the arrival of Jey Uso that Drew McIntyre made it clear that he doesn't trust the former Bloodline affiliate, and this week, McIntyre's suspicions only grew. As we mentioned, Jey accidentally superkicked Kevin Owens this week, something Drew clearly feels was far from an accident, and a match has been made official for next week's show. Uso versus McIntyre will be Jey's biggest match since coming to Raw, but how will this go? Well, WWE reportedly has two ideas in mind. One idea being thrown around is for the Judgment Day to interfere, as they were involved in this week's tag team match and have been trying to recruit Jey since he came to Monday Night Raw. The Judgment Day showing up could prove to be a distraction and help give Jey the win, leading the former right-hand man to be more trusting of Finn Balor and his allies. The other idea would go the opposite way, and rather than teasing a heel turn for Jey, it could be McIntyre who cements a return to the darker side next week. McIntyre has been teasing a heel turn in recent weeks, and the idea is that Drew's refusal to give Jey a chance would be what confirms his heel turn. With Drew's tag team partner Matt Riddle out of the picture, WWE needs something to keep the Scottish Warrior on TV, and a heel turn could certainly do just that. We've already seen that with Riddle gone, McIntyre is going out on his own, including getting a hard-fought win over Xavier Woods, a beloved babyface, on this week's Raw. There's a lot of questions right now, and we'll have to wait until next week to get some answers as Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre look to settle the issues between them in the ring. For over 25 years, Michael Cole has been a part of WWE's broadcast team, and while the former war correspondent is very good at his job, he's still human and more than capable of making mistakes. On this week's Raw, Cody Rhodes and Dominic Mysterio had a segment that quickly resulted in a brawl, and it was JD McDonagh's interference that turned the tide in the favor of Dirty Dom. During the chaos, Michael Cole called the action on commentary, and in a sheer slip-up, referred to everyone's favorite dominant faction as the Judgment Gay, rather than the Judgment Day. While something like this may have been common during the Attitude Era, it was clearly a mistake on Cole's part, and the veteran commentator corrected himself right away. On Twitter, fans poked fun at the mistake, with one saying that the Judgment Gay was their nickname in college, and we expect plenty of memes from this unfortunate botch. Cole may have tried to cover up the mistake, but that slip-up went down before he could stop it, and we imagine he'll be more careful from here on. More from Raw now, as this week's show saw a payback rematch as Rhea Ripley put her Women's World Championship on the line against Raquel Rodriguez. With Dirty Dominic Mysterio banned from ringside due to his interference at Payback, this should have been a fairer match, but that was until the shocking return of a rehired WWE superstar. In the closing moments of the match, Rodriguez swung Ripley into the announcer's desk, but when she rolled Ripley back in the ring, Nia Jax made her WWE return and ambushed Rodriguez. Rodriguez was leveled with a Samoan drop, but managed to get back in the ring in time, with Ripley taking the advantage and hitting the Riptide to secure the win. The returning Nia Jax was not done with the action though, as she attacked Ripley after the match, hitting a bonsai drop off the second rope to close the show. After Raw went off the air, Jax made her way backstage and was clearly pleased with herself, while Ripley at ringside was tended to and seemed dazed by the encounter and unable to stand. This was Jax's first WWE appearance since the Royal Rumble earlier this year, and it'll be interesting to see what's next for the Irresistible Force, as she clearly has Ripley in her sights. So Nia Jax is back with WWE close to 2 years after her release in November 2021, but why exactly is someone who has had unfavorable things to say post-release back at all? Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reports that not only is Jax back, but that she has been signed with WWE for over a month, and her rehiring effectively ended the hiring freeze. Jax was also the first signing the WWE made since Vince McMahon forced his way back into WWE in January that has made their return to the main roster. The report added that while the WWE Endeavor deal is set to be finalized this week, it's unrelated to Jax's return this week, with several in WWE believing that she'd actually returned to WWE before this. One possible reason WWE brought Jax back was to add depth to the women's roster on Raw, and her arrival could be a reset regarding storylines for performers in the singles and tag team divisions. Jax was built as an unstoppable force in Triple H's NXT, and her main roster booking saw her run through the likes of Lana and Ember Moon, and inadvertently helping Becky Lynch gain massive momentum in 2018. If booked right, Nia could be a terrific heel on WWE RAW. She has the looks, the strength, and above all, the intimidating factor to shake up the Red Brand's women's division that desperately requires a reset compared to SmackDown. With that said, many fans are unhappy with Jax's return, as she has a stigma as somebody who injures talent, and WWE should perhaps instruct HR to speak to Jax about not injuring her colleagues. Whatever comes next, we haven't seen the last of Nia Jax on Monday Night Raw, and what do you want to see in the weeks to come? Sound off in the comments. As we mentioned earlier, this week's Raw started off with Jey Uso, who earned a loud ovation by the fans in the arena, but this wasn't the opening WWE originally had in mind. Fightful Select reports that Cody Rhodes was instead supposed to open the show, and his opening segment with Dominic Mysterio was moved to the middle of the show. This wasn't the only change to the evening's proceedings though, as Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin's match with the Viking Raiders was pulled from Raw and instead happened on Main Event. Zoe Stark and Natalya were supposed to compete on WWE Main Event, but their match was pulled, and there's no reason publicly known for these changes being made. Raw scripts are laid out in advance, but are always subject to change, even until the last minute, and it seems that this was the case with this week's edition of the Red Brand. Since capturing the World Heavyweight Championship in May, Seth Rollins has proven himself to be a fighting champion, though his work ethic has taken a toll on the body of the architect. Rollins' underlying injuries, especially to his back, have played a big role in his feud with Shinsuke Nakamura, and WWE management are concerned for the well-being of the champ. On Raw, Rollins addressed the fans, revealing that WWE management has asked him to tone things down in the ring, fearing he will burn himself out at the pace he's going. However, the Visionary stated that it is not in his nature since he is a fighter before challenging Nakamura to a rematch for later in the show. Nakamura's music played, but he didn't come out, and instead was shown on the Titantron beating up Ricochet before vowing that he will challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship. The Japanese star made it clear, though, that he would not be challenging for the title on Raw, and Nakamura also cut a promo which featured clips from Seth's past. The iconic image of Rollins turning on the Shield in 2014 was used, which included AEW's Jon Moxley on screen, which marked the trio's first and most infamous breakup. Right now, Nakamura is more interested in attacking Ricochet backstage than facing an injured champion for the World Heavyweight title in a bizarre booking decision on the show. While the match will eventually happen, it doesn't make sense that Shinsuke Nakamura doesn't want a free hit at Seth Rollins when he isn't at 100%, especially given that the heel should, in theory, have no issue with targeting the injured champion. Instead, Nakamura didn't face Rollins this week, nor will he face him next week, as that Raw will instead see the King of Strong Style take on Ricochet. It seems that this will be a test for both Nakamura and Ricochet, and while a title match with Rollins will happen, it will only come when Shinsuke Nakamura says so. Last night's Raw was one of the most historic events in WWE history, even if it may not have seemed like it, as the show marked the final Raw of the McMahon era of WWE. This week, Endeavor's acquisition of WWE will be finalized, but despite this blockbuster change, arguably the biggest in WWE history, McMahon will have plenty of control over the shows. Despite the acquisition, McMahon will remain a major stakeholder in WWE, with Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel saying he personally requested that Vince stay on, so that while things will change, Vince McMahon will still have plenty of influence. Last week it was reported that WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan had been hospitalized and undergone emergency surgery, but it was unclear what caused this to happen. Now there's been a positive update, as on social media, Duggan shared a photo of himself being all smiles and in the caption confirmed that he is out of the hospital. The inaugural Royal Rumble winner thanked the various medical staff who have helped him over a rough few days, and we're sending our best to Duggan as he continues his recovery. At New York Fashion Week, Maxine Dupree walked the runway, and WWE's chief content officer Triple H was there to support her with some very interesting company. At the event, the game was sat with Ari Emanuel, the Endeavor CEO, as well as Jeff Bezos, the head of Amazon, and we can only imagine what sort of business the three men discussed in New York City. Last weekend, Impact Wrestling recorded its 1000th episode, and Hall of Famer Gail Kim made her return to the ring as part of a 10-woman tag team match. During one instance in the match, Kim was dragged to the floor by Velvet Sky and ended up landing on her head, worrying fans who feared that she may have suffered a concussion. Kim clearly saw the worried responses by fans, and on Twitter, the inaugural Knockouts champion confirmed that she's doing okay, though admittedly was a bit rattled by the spot. It's certainly a relief that Gail Kim didn't suffer any serious injury and is already back to normal, as she'll be part of upcoming Impact plans, including next month's tour of the United Kingdom. 11 years after her retirement match, Kim proved she could still go in the ring, but we can only hope such spots are avoided if she chooses to compete again. On this week's Raw, Chelsea Green asked Shayna Baszler to be her new tag team partner to replace the injured Piper Niven, but the Queen of Spades was in no mood to be making friends. Instead, the pair wrestled, and Niven appeared to reveal that she was cleared for action, and while Baszler got the win, she was attacked post-match by the women's tag team champions. That beatdown would have continued if not for Zoe Stark, who seems to have formed an alliance of her own with Baszler, which could be seriously bad news for Green, Niven, and their reign as tag team champions. It was last week that Chad Gable put up a valiant effort against Gunther, but with his family in tears at ringside, Gable was unable to dethrone the dominant Intercontinental Champion. In a post-match interview, Gable promised to be the one to defeat Gunther and end his record-breaking reign, and while we can't say for certain if that'll happen, it appears Chad will get a shot. On Raw, Imperium were in the ring to celebrate Gunther's record-breaking title reign, with the Man of the Hour belittling all the legends who have held the title before him, before being interrupted by Gable. Gable congratulated Gunther on his milestone and spoke about his family being heartbroken last week, and the Austrian fired back by calling Gable a terrible, disgusting father. This infuriated Gable, who attacked the ring general but was outnumbered, and while Otis did try and help out, it was only when a steel chair-wielding Tommaso Ciampa arrived that Imperium scattered. It looks like things between Gable and Gunther are heating up, and it got more interesting with Tommaso Ciampa now thrown into the mix. With Gable interrupting Imperium's celebration, it's clear he could be set to challenge Gunther for a fourth time, and already has one win over him via countout. As for when their rematch will happen, perhaps it'll be at WWE Fastlane in October, but Gable will need to pull out everything he has and more in order to defeat Gunther. And we're ending with CM Punk, and as speculation grows that he could return to WWE, this week Kevin Nash weighed in on a potential return. On his Click This podcast, Nash dared Punk to return, saying if it happens, he'll ask Triple H to put him in the 2024 Men's Royal Rumble match so that Nash can get his hands on the controversial ex-AEW star. Nash has made it clear he's no fan of Punk's actions, even saying the Real World's champion needs mental help given what happened at All In, and if CM Punk's return does happen, Kevin Nash's comeback may not be far behind.